You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be with you. Happy that you are with us. Thanks for being with us on CKLU 96.7 FM, live on the radio, also live streaming on CKLU.ca. You just click on the Radio Player Canada app and you can stream us. You can also download the Radio Player Canada app, listen to us anytime, anywhere on your favorite device. And so it's going to be a great day. It's Thursday, February the 16th. I'm just getting some things up and running here. I didn't have headphones. I just realized that last minute here. I did not have headphones, which is kind of weird in and of itself, just because I have to have headphones. So luckily... not luckily that Billy's not on the show today, but Billy is not on the show today. But luckily his headphones were on his chair right beside me. I was able to grab those. I don't know what happened to mine. It is what it is. Just it's the last thing I wasn't aware that I wouldn't have headphones here. But we are also a music studio in here, and headphones get used and they're repurposed and things like that. Anyways. So I'm just glad to be on and that everything is working so far. So comments should be working today. Let me just check in here. If anyone's going to be jumping on, I'll open up the room for anyone jumping on, our co-hosts. I'll get our Sudbury News Facebook page up and running so I can see your comments in real time, and also mute it so it doesn't come on and echo. There we go. There's some technical things behind the scenes. We got a lot to talk about today. There is weather, there is sports, but very little. And there's tons of headlines. We're going to have a really great conversation today. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, mainly comment, because this is your show on your station. And this is your conversation on your station, which rhymes better. So good morning. From YouTube. Yes, I believe it's Carrie B. Sometimes I'm not sure. People have handles and I'm not sure if that's names or handles, but either way, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us, and make sure to comment as you just want to chime in on the conversation this morning. And we got a lot to talk about. We are live on Facebook.com/Sudbury News, YouTube, as you can see already, .com/Sudbury News, and thankful for the moderators from Facebook and YouTube for all that they do, keeping people like ourselves up to speed with the community standards that they have. So thanks for the job that you do. And good morning, Chris. Thanks for being with us. It is very icy out there today, so let's just jump in with the weather. We'll get to that and much, much more here on Sudbury News Talk right after this. Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca, and I'm just not where. Okay, here we go. Technical things again. Had a conversation with Billy. It's not his fault, but as he was leaving for work this morning, we were chatting about the show yesterday and how good of a show it was and how great of a guest Natalie Labby was, and some of the things that we were talking about on the show. So if you missed yesterday's show, all you have to do is go back on our Facebook page or our Sudbury.news page and watch the show, because they are there after they are live. Currently it's minus 14 Celsius. It is feels like minus 24 though. Very cold out there. And today, what we can expect is a mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of flurries early this morning. Wind 15 kilometers, high of -8. Wind chill is 20 this morning, and then -11 in the afternoon. Tonight, mainly cloudy, 60% chance of light snow this evening after midnight. Wind becoming 20 kilometers late this evening, low of -18. Wind chill, -15 in the evening, -28 overnight. So cold night tonight with the wind chill, -28. Risk of frostbite there. Friday, sunny, windy. Wind is 20 kilometers. It's not windy. And becoming light late in the morning. High of -11. Wind chill, -28 in the morning and -15 in the afternoon. Risk of frostbite again. So again, tomorrow it's going to start off cold and is going to continue nippy throughout the day. Sunny though, -11 tomorrow. And then the clouds roll in with a 40% chance of flurries on Saturday. -2 is your high, 40% chance of flurries on Sunday. High of -1, so it's again a mild weekend after a little bit of a cold snap these 2 days here. Monday, 60% chance of flurries, -7 is your high. Tuesday, Wednesday, forecast so far to be sunny and high of -13 both of those days. So what we can expect is the same what we're having tomorrow, next Tuesday and Wednesday, but you know how forecasts go. I highly doubt it. Here's me doing the weather, doubting the weather. Okay, look at your satellite over northern Ontario. We got some clearing moving in, and that's where we're gonna have a sunny day tomorrow, luckily. And but it's going to be cold again. So that's your weather. Brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. And we'll be back with some sports headlines right after this. And Sudbury Sports, brought to you by SudburySports.com. It's Randy Pascal's website where he reports all things Sudbury sports. He is that Sudbury sports guy. Thanks, Adam. We appreciate that. Starting your morning with Sudbury News Talk. Much appreciated. Glad that we start our morning with all of you all as well. Good morning, Shane. Young fella. Yeah, I wish actually, but thank you very much. Hope all is well. Chris, yes, all is well. Chris, I'm surprised buses aren't canceled. Yeah, on a day you would really think, like with the amount of ice that's out there, it's pretty crazy. Good morning, Judy. Thanks for being with us this morning. And as usual, Dave, you definitely, your tagline this morning, stay safe, definitely is in play this morning. What happened with our driveway this morning, or last night, it was a lake, basically, and now it's a skating rink. So it was a lake in our very large area in front of our home, and now it's a skating rink. I should have brought my skates this morning as I started up the vehicles. Good morning, Diane. Good morning, bon matin. And good morning, Brian. Thanks for being with us this morning. A little bit of sports. Tomorrow, the Sudbury Wolves will be here in town live. You can get your tickets at greatersudbury.ca/tickets. Get there live, experience it. It's the Erie Otters, the first time they are going to be in town since 2019, actually. It's been a long time since they've been here. But it'll be, the game sponsor is Desjardins. There'll be a ball toss in the second intermission, and they'll support Canadian Blood Services. So you can purchase balls at the tables. So it's going to be a great activity there for everyone to participate in. And also they'll have those light sticks, so it'll be a great atmosphere for kids to be there. What I find when I'm there with the kids, they're just having such a great time. They have the cameras that go around, and they have these different segments where, they got to do that dance there whatever it's called, that I can't do. And then they just, they go around and put the camera on the kids. They love being on camera on the Jumbotron, and they really do have a good time. The Go Wolves Go, when it comes up on the Jumbotron, they're all excited. And then Howler goes around, and it's really fantastic for the kids. It's just great excitement. And then there's a hockey game going on. Lo and behold, there's an actual hockey game on the ice, and the Wolves put on a really great show in town, and there will be no different tomorrow night at the Sudbury Arena. Tickets are on sale now, like we said, at greatersudbury.ca/tickets to see a list of the full themes that they have, because tomorrow night is bilingual night. They have themes every game, so tomorrow night is bilingual night. You don't have to be bilingual to go to the game. But then following Friday's game, the Wolves are headed to Niagara to face the Ice Dogs, 2 p.m. on Sunday. And then Family Day, the Wolves will head to Peterborough for a Family Day afternoon game with puck drop set for 2:05. And fans can follow the Wolves on the road by tuning in to games with live play-by-play by our own David Bowen on this station, CKLU 96.7 FM. Also, mixlr.com/Sudbury Wolves. Fans can also watch the game live at chl.ca. For more information, always visit sudburywolves.com. Now, the Five are also on the road. They got 3 games in Newfoundland. They already faced the Newfoundland Rogue here. They won the game. 3 more games in Newfoundland. Then they're back here on Family Day, 2 p.m. Lots of really great fun things. They got family pack tickets available. So you go to the5.ca, check out all of the latest for the Five, and you can check out the games. They have links where you can watch. You got to pay, but you got to pay to watch the Five, but you can go there, click on the link, and you can watch the Five. Not a problem. That is your Sudbury Sports, brought to you by that Sudbury Sports guy, Randy Pascal's website, sudburysports.com. For all things Sudbury Sports, visit sudburysports.com. We'll be back with tons of headlines, your comments, and trying to unpack some of those headlines right after this. And here we are, and we are back, and we are going to be talking about headlines here on Sudbury News Talk. We're not beginning with that. That's going to be our deep dive for a little bit later on today. Beginning with things to look out for during Greater Sudbury's 2023 budget talks. I believe they went ahead last night. Sudbury.com did some digging on those. Let's just see what they have here with Greater Sudbury's 2023 budget deliberations beginning last night. Sudbury.com dug deep into budget documents, and prior to coverage to weed out what readers might look for, the city's elected officials were tackling some big subjects, including, which we're all interested in, adding more sworn members to Greater Sudbury Police Service. We'll have more on that later. Reducing GOVA transit hours of operations. Not good for the people in town who take public transit, obviously. Tackling the city's degrading infrastructure, and which, if any, of the 45 tabled business cases they will approve. Per City Council's direction, the 2023 budget has been limited to 3.7% tax levy impact. So they only want to raise the taxes 3.7%, which required city administration to cut, as we've talked about on this show many, many times, $17.8 million from the base budget. And any changes City Council opts to make will alter the levy unless they find alternative funding sources, such as city reserves, which already lag behind the provincial average, or debt, which has ballooned to approximately $355 million last year from $18.98 million in 2014. So in 2014, we had $19 million in debt. And we now have $355 million. Well, that was last year. We probably have more than that now. $355 million when it was $19 million in 2014. 8 years ago. 7 years, 8 years ago. An increase of 327 million, something like that. That's a lot of increase in debt. A 4.8% water wastewater rate increase has also been proposed, which is in line with the city's long-term financial plan. That's a lot of information to take. There's a lot of work that's going to have to be done in the city, as we can see. Good morning, Claudette. Thanks for being with us. Good morning, Julia. Thanks for being here as well. Good to see you on. And Adam, transit in Sudbury just keeps getting worse. It looks like that's what they're proposing as well, is to cut back, right? Limiting hours, limiting routes. That's only going to make it worse. So yeah, it's not the greatest place for public transit, that's for sure. Another thing that we've been wondering about has been, we have a housing crisis. Obviously, it's not a secret. So we've proposed this transitional housing complex to go kind of on the corner of Notre Dame and LaSalle. The headline from Sudbury.com, transitional housing complex expected to open in November. With long talked about 40-unit transitional housing complex anticipated to open on Lorraine Street, which is basically on the corner of LaSalle and Notre Dame, by November, Sudbury.com dug deep to find out what exactly is being constructed and whether neighbors' concerns are being addressed. And now I know they have this on their stories of the day. Let's just check it out here. So, its impending occupancy follows a number of notable hurdles, including a rushed site selection by City Council, neighborhood opposition, pandemic-related construction delays, and the province declining to fund its medical staff, despite the expense being under their jurisdiction. But what exactly is this project? Why do neighbors oppose it? And what is the city doing to address their concerns? The 40-unit complex is currently being built in segments at an Apex modular facility in Dundalk, a village in southern Ontario. After its modules are completed this summer, it's expected to take 2 or 3 weeks to assemble them together like puzzle pieces on a vacant city-owned lot on Lorraine Street. Finishing work will follow, with occupancy anticipated by November. A modular build was selected by its quicker than traditional builds, City Housing Services Manager Briscoe told Sudbury.com, noting the $7.4 million grant from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation toward the $12 million project stipulated it must be in operation quickly. So, yeah, I can't blame them for going that route. Yes, you definitely agree with Adam on that one, that Sudbury Transit is definitely lacking, and it's only getting worse. Tracy, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Jennifer, good morning to you as well. We're talking about two things, the budget in Sudbury, and this also is in line with the budget. It's the transitional housing complex that is going forward. It's going to be done in November. It is going to be kind of rushed. They don't have funding from the province, particularly for the medical staff that was planned, because it is transitional. People that are having a hard time with drug addiction, experiencing homelessness, life skills, things like that. So they won't have a medical staff, or at least the funding for that going ahead. So it seems to be a little rushed and not as planned out as it should indeed be. But we'll have more on that as time goes on. We're also talking about the police board. We'll get more to what our police chief is saying in terms of how he feels about this kind of catch and release ideology that we're adopting. The United States is doing the same thing too. It's being very much lighter on criminals, lighter on crime, and hoping that that will somehow rehabilitate. Less punishment means less crime. We'll see if that is indeed what it is. We just have to look outside right now and say, do we have less crime? Because they've been doing this now for a couple of years. So if crime is indeed getting less and less, we know that it's working. And the opposite is the opposite too. But along these lines, the police are to consider equity, diversity, and inclusion position. So good morning, Monique. Thanks for being with us. A lot of stories to talk about today in Sudbury News. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. The equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts of Greater Sudbury Police are slated to go under review later this year for the potential addition of a staff member. During his first meeting on the police board since being elected last month, Jerry Lougheed Jr. urged police to look at bolstering the department. He said, "I think it's a reflection of our society, which has gone far more diverse, and everybody needs to have a voice at this table and outside this room," he told Sudbury.com after Wednesday's meeting. "I think it's very important that there's proper investment made with regard to resources, whether that's human resources or financial resources, with regard to programs. I'm very blessed to have friends in the community that represent various groups that are very keen about this. I just want to make sure that they're included in the process." During Wednesday's meeting, Chief Paul Pedersen explained that equity, diversity, and inclusion effort of Greater Sudbury Police is currently headed by Sergeant Josh Rickard, whose portfolio also includes special projects. The effort has been enhanced by part-term intern who has joined under the one-year contract funded through the Northern Ontario Heritage Corporation to assist the development of an equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy. So as far as I know, they want to have an equity, inclusion, and diversity and inclusion officer, someone who's paid solely just to manage equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? Do we need somebody working for the police who that's their sole role to do, is just to make sure that there's equity, diversity, and inclusion in our police services? It's your show, so whatever you feel about that. It's definitely something that's very important to many of the people in our progressive society. We want to make sure that everybody is being represented. There could be some downsides to that as well, right? Because what does that actually mean? We need to understand, what does it mean to have that position? What does it entail? It was the same thing that I thought when I was working at the Sudbury Star, and one of the subscribers was the commissioner of both official languages for Ontario. And I would go to the office every day, and there never seemed to be too much activity going on in there. And I just, in my mind, wondered what the commissioner of both official languages in Ontario, what their job actually was. And so maybe I should call them up and ask them. But I just thought it might have been one of those kind of jobs that we had at Laurentian University that were a position, where their salaries are very large. And I'm just wondering what they actually did to commission both official languages. What does a commissioner of both official languages in Ontario actually do day to day? Is it a rigorous schedule of a lot of tasks to do that warrant a large salary in an office with a lot of overhead? And does it, what is it actually accomplishing? And that's the same thing I would have asked of Laurentian University, of all of those positions that were made that were very ambiguous. Their titles were ambiguous. Their roles were not clear of what they were doing according to Lysak's report, audit of Laurentian's insolvency. And I think just our society, I think that's just indicative of our society in general. I think Sudbury falls victim to these things more than other communities for some reason, as we have a very progressive government in place. They're so progressive, they want to be ahead of the game sometimes, and you just never know. You're so progressive, you leave behind common sense and things. So we definitely have to have that conversation, whether or not it's needed here. It's supposed to be directed towards hiring. More than likely, we don't know, right? So what does that equity, diversity, and inclusion officer, what is their role? Like, let's define it. What is it to do? What are the goals of it? They didn't have enough in the budget last year in order to bring it in. And so Jerry Lougheed Jr., a new member of the board, was on the board before, but went through some things, as we remember, in the news where he was recorded on record on a recording, basically telling a candidate to step down so that another candidate can run, and that is illegal. And so, but he was let off of all those charges, even though there was tape of him on record saying that. And so he kind of took a little hiatus, but now he's back on the board. And so he's making the suggestion that we do, in fact, need an equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy, also an officer, a paid person through tax dollars, making sure that there's equity, diversion, and inclusion in the workforce. Adam says they need to be stopped being obsessive with race, gender, and orientation of a person when hiring. Focus on hiring the most qualified and competent person for the job should be the most important thing. That is correct. I agree, Adam. It's competency over equity, right? That is a whole discussion which we will continue to have on this show, and I hope the discussion will be open. A lot of times from a lot of super progressive people who are very much on that side of the table. You notice emotions get up high instead of just a logical conversation or debate about the subject, and that's where we want to bring it back down to an actual logical, topical discussion on factual information, and discuss it, and not just take it as, well, that's just the way we are going, and that's the way we have to be. It's settled, kind of thing. So I think there's still a lot of questions around that. We will continue to have that conversation right here on Sudbury News Talk. We had a really great discussion yesterday with Natalie Labby on the show, Ward 7 councillor. Oh yeah, and is a city audit needed? For sure, definitely. I do believe it is, and we will be asking city councillors, as Natalie said, we should reach out to the other city councillors as well and talk about their things that they're in charge of and the committees they sit on. And one of them is an audit committee, and I found a few of them that sit on that, and we should talk to them about that actual thing to do. We want equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. That is true. Julia, thank you. We want equality of opportunity and not equality of outcome. So that makes everybody have the same opportunities to go to school, to be qualified the same, so that way you don't have to just say there's a certain person out there that didn't get the chance, so they need to have the job. So that's the outcome, right? You want to put the square peg through the round hole because you didn't go back to the beginning on the planer to make a round piece of wood. You made a square. So you got to go back to the beginning and make a circle, and then the circle can fit through the circle hole. I'm referring to those toys we have as kids where you put the square in the square hole, the circle in the circle hole, and it's usually a blue and red ball kind of thing. So we got to go back to the beginning, give everybody a chance to be qualified the same, not say, well, you're not qualified, but because we want diversity and equity and inclusion, you get the job even though you're not qualified. That does not help anyone on any level, anytime, anywhere. So yeah, we definitely have to have that discussion for sure. What they're doing in the States, you're going to see some huge air traffic. You're going to see some huge disasters when it comes to the airlines in the United States, because they've put this into full force down there. So they've lowered the bar so that way people who don't necessarily have the qualifications, but they fit the equity, diversity, and inclusion definition, they get the jobs, but they're not qualified to fly. So people are flying around with people who don't have the qualifications. They don't have what the standards used to be for flying. And there's a lot of near misses that have been happening lately in the United States. So I won't be getting on a plane anytime soon, I'll tell you that much. But we've gone down that road, and we will see the outcomes of that. So we will see the outcomes of equality outcomes. We will reap that. So you'll see a lot of things to do with that in the near future. I don't agree with lowering the bar. I believe with bringing others up to the bar, not lowering the bar for other people. If you can picture what's that activity where you go the limbo. So the limbo, they're raising the bar in that case to make it easier for people. But the idea of lowering the standards for everybody, why would we need to lower standards? Why wouldn't we want to bring up others to those standards? And if you check your ideology with equity, diversity, and inclusion, I think you need to add that to that ideology, and I think you're onto something good. So let's just see if that's something that we'll see in the future. Natalie was on the show talking about the impact of the fire station review and what that means for Sudbury. I thought it was a great conversation. I thought we had a lot of really great insight into, and I think she's doing a great job. She put it back out there to people, so that way, even though some councillors will say, we already been through this already, why do we need to revisit it? She just wants to make sure that everybody's on the same page and it doesn't feel like the city's doing something behind people's backs or behind closed doors. So the city remains in fact-finding stage of fire station review. While some residents lament the potential loss of their community's volunteer fire stations, the city remains in the fact-finding stage of its review of emergency services infrastructure. So we talked at length about that yesterday. And one of the things that we got out of the conversation was the impact of the mandate of vaccinations on our volunteer firefighters. So once everything hit the fan and there was a mandate, we lost 40 of our volunteer firefighters throughout this region. I asked Natalie, does this make a huge impact? Because you need a certain amount of volunteer firefighters to run these stations in order to keep up to the standards of fire stations and deliver the kind of emergency services that we need to have delivered. And we don't have those numbers of volunteer firefighters, nor can we get them, in the timely manner in order to be able to deliver those services. So 40 volunteer firefighters we lost. So I wonder if we can get those same numbers in our healthcare system. How many did we lose? Can we just talk about that? And also how the city still has a mandate. You can't even run for council if you're not vaccinated. Can't be mayor. Can't have a city job. And you can't be a volunteer firefighter. So North Bay has turned around and rescinded that mandate, and they actually apologized. They publicly apologized to their city and their constituents for doing that and putting them through that. Many people lost their job. Have you ever lost your job before? Anyone who's lost their job, it's a huge, huge thing. A lot of your identity, speaking of identity these days, equity, diversity, inclusion, I don't think these people felt too included when they were fired from their jobs for a health decision that they made. A lot of these people were sensitive to these medical procedures and have had bad experiences in the past. And so, rightfully so, were concerned about their health and chose, it was their body, their choice, right? So they chose not to do that, and they lost their jobs. You know, if you lost your job, what did that do to you before? What did that do to your self-esteem? What did that do to you being able to pay the bills? You know, did we really talk about the impact that we've had on these individuals? Sure, I'm happy to talk about people who are diverse and they need opportunities all across the spectrum, people of underrepresented populations of any kind. I fall into those categories in many ways, in many different categories. If you want to break up human beings into identities and categories, I fall into a lot of underrepresented categories. So I'm with you on that. But what about that category of somebody who's concerned about their health? And it's shown scientifically that like people in North Bay right now, they can work and they don't have the mandates in place. And if we just look to our neighbors and see, are there health concerns with doing that? Are there rates going up, or their deaths going up by by a certain percentage? Let's just monitor them, see how it's going. And should we also be looking at what North Bay did here in Sudbury? An apology would be great too, just like what North Bay did to all of these people whose lives were devastated because of that. And now it shows in the future it wasn't needed. It actually wasn't needed. It wasn't such a thing that, they posed any threat whatsoever. Anyone who's got the vaccination is transmitting just as much as anyone who didn't get it, if not more now. So, can we revisit that too? And then possibly we'd be able to have more volunteer firefighters. That would be, and more frontline healthcare workers. Wow, just think of that. So we could get the numbers on that. Also, another segment of our society, speaking of inclusion, who's been bombarded recently, are farmers. Agriculture Conference in Sudbury focuses on new farming technology. A new post-pandemic outlook was on the agenda for the annual Northern Ontario Agricultural Conference in Sudbury yesterday. So hopefully they're able to band together and make things, we need food. People need food to eat. And recently there's been all kinds of things going on. There's been chickens not being able to lay eggs in the United States and Canada. They think it's food related, what they're feeding the chickens. There's the mandate or regulations put forward by our federal government that farmers can only use less than half the fertilizer they've been using over years and years. So less food production. There's all kinds of, it's very expensive to farm. Farming has become one of the most expensive things. The profit margins are so low. Who wants to get into farming these days, right? So that's a huge thing for our society. It's going to impact us. You go to the grocery store, inflation already, and then less food aren't a good combination. If you have inflation and less food, you have hyperinflation. And as our society declines, as it is declining, we're just witnessing it, and we're talking about it each and every day. It's going to make a huge impact. And something also that is a huge impact and needs people to talk about is the missing murdered Indigenous women movement, right? So its title is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. There is Laurentian is putting on a red dress event It will be helping to draw attention to this particular movement, which it's not only Indigenous women and girls. Human trafficking is all over the world, and it is an epidemic everywhere. However, this is a specific thing as well. It's very unique to Indigenous women and girls, and you can prove that by the numbers. Specifically, they are targeted, and definitely we need to do something about that. Education is always a good start, and continuing on to educate and talk about things can only help get the word out. Now, Sudbury hasn't been able to build a new arena for I don't know how long, since the 1800s. No, just kidding. 1957 is when we had our arena built. But North Bay here just announcing new North Bay Arena moving forward. After a city council vote and a close vote Tuesday evening, North Bay City Council decided to move forward with a new $52 million arena and community center project. The arena will be located at the Steve Emoshi Complex. I'm sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Anyways, I apologize to all the people in North Bay, but anyways, it's going to be located at that complex with federal government funding, nearly half the project cost. Support for the project came from councillors in North Bay. One of them said she voted yes. It's very clear that North Bay needs arenas. I don't think the wonderful citizens of North Bay have the money to foot the bill of a new arena. This option gives us a community center that's worth $52 million for $26 million, and I think that makes the most sense. Those who voted against it, they name the ones that voted against it. We're talking almost $16.7 million out of reserves to finance the projects if it goes ahead based on the tender. That was from one of the councillors. Another one said, I thought there was other options we might have looked at, but currently it's the will of council to move this forward, and it's democracy. So it doesn't look like it's going to be the arena where the Centennials play, but they had a refurbished arena, one of the options that we have here. And thank you, yes, Miles, 1951 is when our arena was built here. And again, that's not replacing their main arena. That is just an arena and complex, a community complex that also we are planning on building here in our city as well. A few other ice pads and complexes not related to the arena where the Sudbury Wolves will be playing. Melissa says, our world has changed thanks to the New World Order. This is crazy. Yes, for sure. Speaking on our last topic we were talking about, that is definitely indeed the case. There is a movement, as we know. A lot of progressives will kind of go along with there's a movement to globalize, right? This isn't anything new. We want to globalize our world, make everything homogenous. It's pretty much almost there anyways. You go to any city, you got a Costco, you got a Walmart, you got a this, you got a that. It's been heading there for years and years and years. And so many politicians have been talking about this order that we're going to go into where countries no longer have sovereignty. It's basically just a one world governed, as Klaus Schwab would put it, you'll own nothing and be happy. The World Economic Forum leader, somewhat synonymous with Dr. Evil. But anyways, I digress. Now here you go. Powerful animal tranquilizer circulating in Sudbury, officials warn. The community drug strategy for the greater city of Sudbury has received confirmation that this particular drug, I don't know, can't even pronounce it, XYLAZINE, a powerful animal tranquilizer, has been found in Sudbury and area. So what does that mean in particular? This is from CTV Northern Ontario. A person may be exposed to this particular drug when using other substances, said in a news release from Public Health Sudbury and Districts. This drug is an animal tranquilizer. It is not intended for human use, and when consumed in combination with other drugs, increases the risk of overdose. The tranquilizer can lower heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing. Repeated exposure may lead to severe abscesses or wounds in areas other than injection sites. As a non-opioid, naloxone will not work to reverse the effects of this drug, the health unit said. However, if you suspect an overdose, it's recommended that you administer that naloxone as it will combat the effects of any opioid consumed because they're consuming this drug along with opioids, obviously. Okay, back to sports with Miles. The Senior Wolves played out of the Stanley Stadium in Coppercliff before 1951. And that stadium to me still perplexes me because it was the size of the Sudbury Arena pretty much. I don't know if it had as many seats, but it was pretty much the pictures of it. I only know it by pictures. Looked like the size of the Sudbury Arena. It was in Coppercliff. And they tore it down. It wasn't there all that long. It was a rather new stadium. And they just tore it down, which was kind of weird, I thought. Okay, so Tracy's saying we need to call for transparency and an audit. City spending is not being directed as required. The 1950s is ridiculous for a last arena. That is correct. So many upgrades are needed in our community. Again, correct. And Denise, good morning. Thanks for being with us today. Adam, the WEF is horrible. Don't trust anyone who says they will fix all the problems if we give them all the power. Yeah, definitely. Much agreed. So many movements going on these days. Which movements do you get behind, It's crazy. Our own government, though, here, also trying to toe the line of the WEF. You have to wonder. I have a video here. Bill C-21 was just, the amendments were just shot down where they tried to squeeze in going after everyone's guns. Well, they're still going to do it, regardless of they shot that down in the bill. And so I have a video here that basically lays it all out. So let us know what you think. We'll be back right after this.
News for all of our community members here. In our hands, both Ms. Wilson and myself, we have a document that is guides a discussion that the federal government is having with all kinds of different stakeholders. I guess in this case, it might be a province or a municipality or something. And it is concerning the Liberal government's long gun confiscation program. What do you think, Wilson?
Yeah, so basically what this is it is an agenda for an upcoming meeting. The meeting will be held on February 21st and 22nd between Federal Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino and the provincial and territorial public safety ministers or their deputies. And basically they're deciding to go full steam ahead with the buyback, which we call a confiscation program, of our legally acquired firearms. So this is kind of a big deal. It shows that there is movement. They are still committed to doing it, and they're going to try and get it done within this year.
All right. So we got a lot of stuff to whip through. We're going to try to make it as quick as possible. So we're just you can get a copy of this document on our website. But the first thing I found was interesting is in this under background, the firearms buyback program builds on the government's measures to protect the public from firearms violence. And I just say to that lol, because they all lined up against bail reform. I mean, they've got murderous repeat offenders walking the streets, literally murdering people and police, and they won't lift a finger to do anything about that. But they need our stuff for some reason.
Right. Yeah. They're keeping Canadians safe.
Yeah. And here's a big surprise. The next one, the next part down, you can comment on that one, Tracy.
Yeah, so it says right here, I'm going to paraphrase, It says the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, will be the main agency responsible for leading the collection of these ASFs. That's the terminology they're using, assault-style firearms, or ASFs. They say they do have operations in most provinces and territories, and they want to reassure the provinces that they will fully fund the RCMP that they use for this program.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to help the public's relationship with the RCMP much.
No, I don't think so.
And so the important stuff is here in next steps. The timelines for the launch of the program will be released once they get agreements in place with as many people as they possibly can. And that second point down, you can talk about, Tracy.
Yeah, so there's kind of two parts to the program. They're talking about starting with businesses that have inventory, unsellable inventory that they're stuck with, and in the first half of 2023, and in the second half focusing on individuals. But what's really interesting is they say here that they've had very encouraging discussions with Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, and then a number of cities. So if you live in any of those provinces, you need to start writing your provincial politicians right now and letting them know that you want no part of their participation in this. And then cities who apparently have had conversations with the federal government in partnering and confiscation are Victoria, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, St. John, Halifax, and Charlottetown. So I'm a little shocked to see Edmonton and Calgary in there, but
yeah, what are they thinking?
They're not, apparently. Well, to be fair, the mayor of Edmonton is a former Liberal minister, so I guess it all trickles down.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what you get. Victoria and Vancouver, these people are lunatics. If you ever go to the east side of Vancouver, it is like literally Mad Max zombie apocalypse down there, fueled by meth and heroin and fentanyl.
Oh, yeah.
There's people being stabbed, people being killed, police officers, RCMP officers being stabbed to death there. Well,
right.
That one wasn't specifically on the east side. It was a little bit away in Burnaby, is my understanding. But I mean, it's just random attacks. Like, my kids live downtown, and just random attacks happening all the time. That's where that 6,000 crimes that were committed by 40 people. That's where that is in Vancouver. But the big priority, and that's all still going on. I was just downtown last weekend. The big priority right now for Vancouver City Council, I guess, is send the RCMP out to the Fraser Valley, out into the mountains, to get Rod Giltaca's AR-15 that's in a safe and registered.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
I think it's wild how some people can't understand why this is rejected so vehemently by gun owners. It's so ridiculous. You got to be in La La Land to agree with any of this stuff. Anyway, I guess the last part right at the bottom, if you want to cover that, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, for a government whose number one priority in relationships is Indigenous people, it says engagement with Indigenous communities will also be initiated shortly. So they haven't even started talking to Indigenous communities about how they're going to come in to their communities and start confiscating rifles from their people. I don't know. I still say it's impossible, but it does look like they are sure going to give a kick at the can here.
Yeah. Well, in any case, you can check out the story on firearmrights.ca. You can get a copy of this PDF. And you know what? If you want to play an active role in resisting this, contact your provincial MLAs or MPPs, depending on the province or territory that you're in. Talk to your city councilors, talk to your mayor. This is ridiculous that they would even cooperate with this thing. Remember, at the end of the day, it's targeted directly at people who have firearms licenses and nobody else. So anyway.
That's a good point, right? So it's intended to be there to keep people safe, and we have shootings that are done mainly in urban places, mainly by handguns. 9 times out of 10 or 99 out of 100 times they're illegally obtained firearms. And so, but they come out with guns a-blazing, pun intended, to take away everybody who legally has a firearm. That there is no correlation between those two things, but they'll use these events to fuel the idea that there's dangerous guns out there. But there is zero correlation between these guns and the reason why they're taking them away. Can you see that? It's pretty obvious. There's no correlation between them. You may have the odd person using that, but then again, you'd have to take, how many odd people do we have using knives to go around and stab people, or cars to run people over? More of those than legal gun owners using guns to invoke harm on people. So then you'd have to make knives illegal and make cars illegal and whatever you can use, a baseball bat illegal. You know what I mean? So I don't know. So Adam says this failing NDP Liberal coalition is the most shameful thing to happen to Canada. They are actively working against Canadians, not for us. Yeah, 100% agreed, Monique says. Might be an Indigenous uprising if they go to take away long guns from them. And yeah, well, that might teach them a bit of a lesson, you know what I mean? On one side of their mouth, they're saying, almost sovereignty to Indigenous people, and we acknowledge we're on the lands and things like that, but we're going to then take away something that's your right and just go in and take it away from you. And we're always talking about how we need to be in talks with Indigenous people, talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion here. So that's what I mean. They only use that when it's to their purposes. It's very hypocritical. And it's so again, mathematics doesn't make sense with this stuff. It's not factual. It seems like, and when it comes to somebody voicing their opinion, like this particular Josh character down south, where he said he believes there's only two genders. There's no inclusion for him to believe that. You're allowed to believe anything else other than one thing, which could possibly be the right thing. Because there's more evidence that there's two genders than there are 50 million of them. There's more evidence of that, right? But yet he's arrested and not allowed to go to school. That's not very inclusive. That's not very diverse. So you're taking out one particular point of view. So now you're that one particular point of view less diverse than you were before. So that's very hypocritical of a doctrine, of an ideology. You know what I mean? And here you got taking away guns from Indigenous people, but yet you're saying we're so sorry for what we've done to you in the past. So now we're just going to go and do another thing to them here, which then the future will look back and say, oh my goodness, we're so sorry we went in and took your guns away from you. Like when do we learn? Like when do we actually say, okay, let's use some common sense here and learn as a society and move forward instead of progress by digressing. It's a mad dash to digress is our whole progression as far as I'm concerned anyways. But thanks for being with us today. That's our deep dive, and that's Sudbury News Talk. And thanks for commenting. We really appreciate you being on. And this is your show on your station, your conversation on your station as well. CKLU 96.7 FM. The views expressed on this show were those that of my own and those commenting on the show, not necessarily those of Laurentian University or that of CKLU. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Oh yeah, so can you send me the link to that news link? I would like to research it. Yeah, for sure. If you look at the organization on that video, if you go back and watch the video again, the organization itself is there, but I'll send it to you, Miles. That's not a problem. Have an awesome day as well, Julia. And a lot of comments coming. Yes, have a great day, guys. You were told to believe only what the government wants you to believe. Very sad time in our world. Yeah, definitely. That's called propaganda. It's nothing new. It's been around. It'll continue to be around as long as there's a government. But yes, thanks, everyone. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Have an awesome day, as Tracy says as well. All right. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.